The flowers were perfect. The guests were smiling. And me, I was seconds away from finding out that my entire future was about to collapse. The church bells rang, a hollow sound that seemed to echo straight through my chest. I stood at the altar, hands trembling, heart thudding against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Rows of faces blurred together, friends, family, co-workers, all turning, craning their necks toward the grand doors that stayed stubbornly closed. She was late, but it was Emma. Sweet, stubborn, unpredictable Emma. She was probably fussing with her hair, laughing nervously with her sister, trying to calm herself down. I clung to that thought like a lifeline, even as the minutes dragged and the murmurs started. 5 minutes became 15. 15 became 30. The doors never opened. The priest shifted uncomfortably. My best man whispered something about maybe calling her, but my hands were numb. I couldn't move. I could only stand there as a slow, sick realization pooled in my stomach. Emma wasn't coming. She had left me. The ride home was a blur. I barely heard the apologies, the awkward hugs, the offers to go drinking, the women dabbing their eyes in the pews like it was some tragic movie they'd bought tickets to. All I could hear was the sound of her absence. Her apartment was empty when I got there. Clothes gone, drawers ripped open, the toothbrush holder by the sink. Hers missing, mine knocked over. No note, no call, just a clean, cold vanishing. I sat on the kitchen floor until the streetlights clicked on outside, waiting for the explanation that never came. Days blurred into weeks. I tried to work, tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her walking toward me in that dress she never wore. Or maybe running away. My friends said to forget her, to be grateful I hadn't married a woman who could disappear like smoke. They didn't understand. Emma was warm, fierce, loyal to the bone. She loved too hard, if anything. She wouldn't just walk away, unless something made her. I needed answers like I needed air. I started with her sister, Anna. She looked guilty before I even said a word. She didn't leave because she wanted to, she said, voice cracking. Then why? I demanded, the anger boiling up after weeks of letting it eat me alive. Anna hesitated. Then she said a name I hadn't heard in years. Caleb. My stomach dropped. Caleb had been my best friend once, my brother in every way but blood, until the night he betrayed me so badly I couldn't even say his name out loud anymore. He was dead to me, but apparently not to Emma. Anna looked sick as she said it. Emma had found something out about Caleb, about me, and she couldn't face it. She thought she was protecting me by walking away. What the hell did that even mean? I tracked down Caleb myself. It wasn't hard. Rats usually surface when you start kicking over rocks. He looked the same, smug, smiling like he still knew some secret that could cut me open. Emma came to me 2 nights before the wedding, he said, leaning back in his chair like he was enjoying this. She found out what you did. I almost punched him right there. But some desperate, stubborn part of me needed to hear it. He told her everything, he said. How years ago I had covered for him when things went wrong. When a woman got hurt. When someone needed to pay and it couldn't be him. It was a lie. A twisted, poisoned version of the truth. I hadn't covered for him. I had been trying to fix what he broke. But Emma didn't know that. She thought I was the villain. And Caleb, ever the coward, let her believe it. I found her a week later. A cabin up north, tucked into the woods where no one would find her unless they already knew where to look. It was the kind of place you go to when you're running from everything, especially yourself. When she opened the door and saw me standing there, she froze like a deer caught in headlights. Her hand clutched the door frame, knuckles white, as if she needed something solid to hold on to. I barely recognized her. The sparkle was gone from her eyes. Her shoulders sagged like she had been carrying a burden too heavy for too long. She didn't say a word. She just stared at me, as if waiting for me to yell, to blame her, to punish her for leaving me standing alone in front of hundreds of people. But I didn't do any of that. I just stepped forward, closed the distance between us, and pulled her into my arms. For a second, she resisted. Just a heartbeat. Then she crumbled against me, sobs racking her body, soaking my shirt with the weight of every word she hadn't said. I held her until the sun dipped low and the woods turned black around us. Only then did she whisper the words that had been burning a hole in her chest. I thought I was saving you. I pulled back, enough to see her face streaked with tears, mouth trembling. Saving me from what, Emma? She shook her head, like the truth was too ugly to say out loud. From yourself, she said, voice barely a breath. From the man you used to be. From the things you could never take back. The lies Caleb had planted in her head had taken root, grown wild. I told her the truth. About Caleb. About what really happened that night long ago. About the blood on his hands, not mine. About how I had tried to fix his mistakes, to save a woman he left broken and bleeding behind a nightclub, while he ran off into the dark like a coward. I told her how the guilt had eaten me alive anyway. How I had spent years punishing myself for not doing more. For not being enough. Emma listened, silent, eyes wide and stricken. When I finished, she looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. I'm sorry, she whispered, but sorry was too small a word for the crater between us. I pulled away, running a hand through my hair, trying to breathe through the storm inside me. You didn't even ask me, I said, voice raw. You just left. She covered her mouth with her hand like she was trying to hold herself together. I was scared, she said. I thought, if even half of it was true, I couldn't marry you. I couldn't risk it. I turned away from her, staring into the black trees, where the wind howled through the branches like ghosts. I get it, I said after a long, heavy silence. I just wish you had trusted me enough to stay. I heard her step closer, felt the heat of her presence behind me. I'm here now, she said. But the damage was done. Love doesn't survive on apologies alone. It needs faith. And she had lost hers in me the moment she walked away. We spent the night talking, tangled in a mess of pain and longing, and too many things left unsaid. But when the morning came, I knew what I had to do. I kissed her forehead, tasted salt and regret. Then I walked away. Not because I stopped loving her, but because sometimes love isn't enough. Not when trust has already bled out between you. The weeks after I left her were the slowest death I had ever known. I went through the motions of life, work, sleep, work again. I smiled when people expected it. I nodded in the right places. I even went on a few half-hearted dates, hoping maybe someone else's laughter could stitch up the bleeding in my chest. But no one else smelled like her. No one else's eyes crinkled the way hers did when she was about to say something too bold, too brave. Emma had carved her name into my ribs, and no matter how far I tried to run from it, the mark stayed. Some nights I would wake up gasping, convinced for one wild second that she was lying beside me, that the last few months had been a nightmare I could shake off like sweat. But she was never there. Only the cold side of the bed. Only the hollow ache of things left broken. Friends stopped asking how I was after a while. I think they could see the answer in my face. I wore grief the way other men wore suits. Still, I told myself I was healing. I was moving on, until the night Anna showed up at my door, face pale and eyes wide with terror. She's missing, she said, voice shaking. I didn't need to ask who she meant. Emma, gone again, but this time not by choice. She had been getting threats, Anna said. Notes slipped under her door, late-night phone calls that never said anything, just breathing on the line. Emma hadn't told anyone, not even Anna, until it got too big to hide. And then 2 days ago, she disappeared. Her phone, her car, her bag, all still at the cabin. No signs of struggle, no blood, just gone, like smoke. Panic gripped me so fast I almost dropped to my knees. I had already lost her once. I was not losing her again. I drove through the night, tires screaming against the pavement, heart pounding against my ribs like a drum beat from hell. When I reached the cabin, the sheriff was already there. A few deputies combing the woods, flashlights slicing through the dark. They told me the usual lies. We're doing everything we can. You should go home and wait. She'll probably turn up. Women do this sometimes. They didn't know Emma. Emma didn't run from a fight. Not unless someone made her. I tore through the cabin myself. Every drawer, every closet. Looking for something. Anything. It was in the fireplace I found it. A scrap of paper half burned, the edges curled and black. Only 3 words still visible. He knows everything. The world tilted on its axis. I knew exactly who it was meant for. Caleb, the man who had destroyed everything once before. He wasn't finished. I found Caleb 3 towns over, holed up in a sleazy motel that smelled like old cigarettes and broken dreams. He didn't look like the man I remembered. The years had hollowed him out. His face was gaunt, his eyes bloodshot and sunken, like he hadn't slept properly in years. But there was still that smirk, the one that said he thought he was untouchable. That smirk disappeared the second he saw me standing in the doorway. He reached for something under the table. Too slow. I was on him in 2 strides, slamming him back against the wall so hard the cheap drywall cracked behind him. "Where is she?" I snarled, my voice low and shaking with rage. "I don't know what you're talking about," he wheezed, hands scrabbling against my wrists. "Liar!" I tightened my grip until he gasped, face turning red. "You don't get to play innocent," I growled. "Not after what you did. Not after what you ruined." Caleb's mouth twisted into something almost like a smile, but colder. "You're too late," he said. My blood turned to ice. "What did you do?" He laughed, a dry, hollow sound that scraped against my nerves. "You really think she left you because of me?" He shook his head, eyes glittering with something close to pity. "She left because she found out the truth. About you. About the deal you made." I shoved him harder against the wall, heart slamming against my ribs. "What deal?" He grinned then, teeth bared. "You think I set her up?" He leaned close, breath hot and foul against my face. "I just gave her a little nudge. She found the papers on her own." "Your little bargain with the devil, selling out your old man to get yourself out of jail time." I staggered back, as if he had punched me in the gut. No, that wasn't how it happened. I had been 17, stupid, desperate. My father had taken the fall for something I had done, a bar fight that left a guy in the hospital, to save me from a record, from a future in prison. I had begged him to let me confess. He refused. He spent a year behind bars for me. It had gutted him. It had gutted me. I never forgave myself, but I never sold him out. That was the lie Caleb had fed her, and she had believed it, because part of her already doubted me. Caleb laughed again, coughing when I punched him across the jaw. "You're just mad," he slurred, wiping blood from his mouth, "that she finally saw you for what you are, a coward hiding behind other people's sacrifices." I stood over him, fists clenched, breath coming in ragged gulps. I could have ended him right there, but that wouldn't bring her back. That wouldn't undo the damage. I turned away shaking, heart splintering into pieces inside my chest. "You're pathetic," I said, voice hollow, "and you're going to rot alone." He said something after me, something vile and ugly, but I didn't hear it. I was already gone, already running, because now I knew. Emma hadn't left because she stopped loving me. She had left because she thought I wasn't the man she believed in. And maybe she had been right. Because if I had been stronger, if I had fought harder, if I hadn't let the weight of my own sins break me, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe she would still be safe. Maybe she would still be mine. I drove for hours without knowing where I was going. The road unspooled beneath my tires like some endless punishment. The night pressing down so heavy it felt like I was drowning in it. Emma's face kept flashing in my mind, laughing, crying, the way she had looked that night in the cabin, broken and brave at the same time. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I had failed her once. I was not going to fail her again. It was almost dawn when I remembered something. A throwaway comment she had made once, years ago, while we lay tangled in bed, dreaming about places we could run away to when life got too heavy. "There's a lake," she had said, "a secret place. My grandfather took me there once when I was little. It's where I always felt safest." I punched the gas. The lake was 3 hours north, past the last stretch of civilization, where the trees grew wild and the sky opened up wide and merciless above you. I didn't know for sure if she would be there, but my gut told me it was the only place left. By the time I pulled onto the dirt road leading to the lake, the sun was bleeding weak light across the horizon, washing the world in a sickly gray. The cabin by the water was falling apart. Half the roof caved in, windows boarded up. But there, in the dirt by the porch, fresh tire tracks. My heart kicked against my ribs. I killed the engine and got out, moving quietly, every sense screaming. The door was ajar. Inside it smelled of damp wood and fear. And in the corner, huddled on the floor, wrists bound, lips split and bleeding, Emma, alive, but barely. Relief crashed into me so hard my knees buckled. "Emma." She flinched when she heard my voice, then blinked up at me, disbelief and hope warring in her swollen eyes. I crossed the room in 2 strides, dropping to my knees, fumbling with the knots around her wrists. "I'm here. I'm here, baby. I've got you." She sobbed once, a raw, broken sound that shredded me. I got the ropes off and gathered her into my arms, cradling her like something sacred and fragile. "He told me you would never come," she whispered against my chest. I kissed the top of her head, the taste of salt and blood bitter on my tongue. He lied. I carried her out of that broken place and into the rising sun, where the light was just starting to fight its way through the darkness. At the hospital, they said she was lucky. Bruises, dehydration, a few cracked ribs, but alive. Alive. I sat by her bed holding her hand while she slept, refusing to let go. When she woke, she stared at me like she was afraid I was a dream. "I'm sorry," she said, voice hoarse. "No," I said, squeezing her hand. "I should have told you everything. I should have fought harder. I should have made you believe in me." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I was scared," she said. "I thought I was protecting myself, but all I did was run from the only person who ever fought for me." I leaned down and pressed my forehead against hers. We sat there like that for a long time. Two broken people, trying to stitch a future out of the wreckage. Maybe love wasn't about grand promises and perfect days. Maybe it was about showing up when it mattered. About fighting like hell when everything told you to give up. About choosing each other, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. Emma stayed in the hospital for 3 days. I never left her side. We talked about everything we had buried under silence. The lies, the fear, the love that had never really died, only gone into hiding. There were no easy apologies, no promises we couldn't keep. Only the raw, aching truth of two people who had been torn apart and somehow found their way back to each other through the wreckage. The sheriff came by on the second day. They had Caleb in custody. Turns out, after I left him bleeding in that motel, he had gotten desperate, tried to run, got caught breaking into another cabin up north, high out of his mind. They charged him with kidnapping, assault, a laundry list of crimes that would keep him locked up for a long, long time. It should have made me feel better. It didn't. There were some wounds no amount of justice could heal. On the fourth morning, Emma was cleared to leave. She was quiet as I helped her into the passenger seat of my truck, her hand trembling slightly as she buckled her seatbelt. Neither of us spoke much on the drive back. Some things hung too heavy in the air to name. At the cabin, the first cabin, the one where it had all started, I built a fire and made coffee while she sat curled up on the couch, wrapped in one of my old sweaters that swallowed her whole. She watched me move around the room like she was memorizing every detail. I sat down across from her, the mug warm between my hands. "We should leave this place behind," I said finally. "Start over. Somewhere new." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I don't think we can ever really start over," she said softly. Not after everything. I swallowed hard. Maybe not. But maybe we can build something new, something better. Not by forgetting, but by remembering why we chose each other in the first place. She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time in months, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, still burning under all the hurt. Fierce, brave, beautiful. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't bother to wipe away. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too," I said, but fear had ruled us long enough. I set my mug down and crossed the room, dropping to my knees in front of her. No speeches, no fancy words, just the simple, brutal truth. "I love you." She reached out, fingers trembling, and touched my face like she couldn't believe I was real. "I love you too," she said, voice breaking. We stayed like that for a long time, two broken souls piecing themselves back together one heartbeat at a time. And when the fire burned low and the night closed in around us, we held each other through the dark, knowing the dawn would come. Maybe a little scarred, maybe still a little afraid, but together. And this time, neither of us was running, not ever again. We all have our breaking points, but it's how we rise after that defines us. After everything, I had to ask myself, who am I now? If you've been through heartbreak, betrayal, or had your life completely flipped upside down, I want to know what helped you heal. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. If you want to hear more stories that dig deep into the unexpected moments of life, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. See you next time.